actually from Worksop in Nottinghamshire, but it always gets put in biographies as I come from Sheffield.
Yes, I've read you're from Sheffield.
Yes,
as well.
In fact, I'm from about 20 miles south of Sheffield.
Do you want to put the record straight here?
Put the record straight. Rod thinks of me as a token Yorkshireman because he comes from Huddersfield.
Yeah.
And he has to have an ally somewhere in the...
So you're it, basically.
I'm it, but I'm not actually from Yorkshire. But don't tell him that, because he still sort of thinks I'm a kind of a Yorkshire.
We'll keep that one quiet then.
Yeah.
Now, your background is very different to that of your predecessor, Paul Diana. You actually went to a boarding school. So you did your street credibility quite a lot good by getting expelled from it as well. Why was that?
I did do my exam results most good, but yeah. Well, I was actually the thing I was actually finally expelled for was getting rid of the contents of my bladder and the headmaster's dinner.
So after that, you were off to Queen Mary College.
Yeah. And
you were getting involved with bands, I think, rather than studying in the library. You were playing with bands.
That's the main thing that prompted me. I mean, although I'm quite interested in history, I mean, I didn't exactly want to turn into a don or anything like that, or go and be a history teacher.
Oh, you were studying for a history degree there, were you?
Yeah, and well, the main reason I went to do history there was a friend of mine had been there, and he said that it was to quote, he said it was the biggest DOS he'd ever had for years in his life. So I went, well, I've got to go there because it's in London, and what I really want to do is try and get involved in music, so it seemed like a good idea. All I had to do was write a few essays and pass a few exams, and then I could spend most of the rest of the time working on singing and bands and things. Things
got a little more serious. You joined up with Samson, who featured Paul Sampson and Thunderstick as well, people might know. You were with them for about 2.5 years. Was it a tough decision to leave Samson to join Iron Maiden when Paul Diana quit? Yes and no. It was musically it wasn't a tough decision at all, because as far as the music thing was concerned, I was absolutely convinced that it was the right thing to do. Because I'd always admired what Maiden had been doing, and thought, well, you know, wouldn't it be great to sing for a band like that? You know, the thing that really made me sweat for about 3 days was the idea that I was letting everybody down in the band, because we'd been through an awful lot of problems, and we'd all been sued into next week, and people had, you know, been threatened with losing everything and all the rest of it. I mean, I didn't have anything to begin with, so you know. 100% of nothing wasn't a big problem for me, but we had been through a lot of problems and made just about every mistake it was possible to make in terms of the business, you know, like getting the worst record companies and the worst managers, the worst agents and everything. So that was something, and I just sat down and thought, well, hang on, I shouldn't really be having to think about that. I should really just go with what feels good as far as the music's concerned. Yeah. And so I just sat down and told them one day, I said, look, Maiden asked me to join, and I really want to do it, and so I thought I'd tell you. Started recording the Number of the Beast album with Martin Birch, done at Battery Studios in Willesden. In March of 1982, Run to the Hills was released as the first single, and that was followed by the album itself. As I said, it was called The Number of the Beast, and there was a video done for the title track of that album, wasn't there? Yes, recorded at Newcastle City Hall, actually. Immediately, but we had to get up very early. We were in Edinburgh the night before, and we had to get up very early and come down to start shooting the video. They just set up the gear on stage for the show, and we were shooting the video all day long until about quarter of an hour before the doors opened. In fact, we had to hold the doors, I believe, and we were still all in our stage kit. We were absolutely knackered. And so we just had time to go down, have a cup of tea, and just go straight back out on stage again. And the video you're going to see in a minute, you'll notice that there's a couple of ballroom dancers come on, which was the director's idea. He had this bright idea coming up on the train. So we arrived in Newcastle, and breezes in as all directors do. It was like, give me this dear, and give me that dear, and, you know, all the rest of it. Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah, you know the video directors are like. And he suddenly announced he wanted to find 2 ballroom dancers. So we phoned up. this is like, immediately, I want 2 ballroom dancers, and we're in Newcastle upon Tyne on a Saturday afternoon. And he found these 2 people who'd never been in a video. They were just like amateur dancers. And they just turned up, and they really got into it. They were, you know, And then we had the idea of turning his wife, who's the guy who's dancing or something like that. We said, well, I tell you what we'll do. We'll turn your wife into a werewolf. Do you mind dancing with a werewolf?
Please.
This is great, you know. And so it worked out quite well in the end. Because we flew back from the last show we did in America was in El Paso, so which is somewhere down in the depths of Texas. So we flew back on this horrendous flight. It was awful. All I remember was I had some terrible things for my neck because I'd messed up the vertebrae in my neck and slipped the disc and everything. So I had these like horse tranquilizers or something on the journey back. American Airlines economy class, that was it. There's me and Dave Light sat next to each other, and Dave said, oh God, he said, I can't sleep. I said, take one of these. So we both swallowed one, and I woke up about every half an hour and just, there was his head, and there was my head. I went, oh, like that. So we got back to England, had a couple of days off to adjust, from jet lag, which didn't do us any good at all. And then we went off on 3 warm-up dates for Reading.
Right.
And I was so nervous that, like, about 36 hours before Reading, I completely lost my voice.
Really? Just went?
I mean, it just went. And it was nerves. I mean, it was nerves. I mean, because things like that do happen with your voice occasionally. Not very often, thank God, but I mean, I was like, you know, I was absolutely panic-stricken. And I went down the festival the day before. Everything, I was wandering around with a big subside saying, don't talk to me. You know, I can't
yes,
talk.
I remember you weren't speaking that day.
Well, thinking about it now, you know, with the headline band and Saturday Night the Singers walking around the day before going, I've lost my voice.
It was interesting. You know, you managed to pull through. You were joined
yeah, well,
on stage
it came back miraculously. As soon as I walked on, I thought, I can't possibly lose my voice. This is Reading Festival. So there it was. And then the following day, I went down with the most awful case of flu.
Interesting experience.
Yeah.
Let's move the story along to 1983.
Yeah.
Your voice had come back by this stage, but drummer Clive Burr decided to leave the band. What was that all about?
Again, it was. I think it was more similar to the Paul Di'Anno thing. Although there was a fairly strong musical element in it as well, because as a result of his certain sort of personal things he'd been going through, he's having a lot of problems adjusting, I think, to the idea, not to his position as a drummer in a big rock band, you know.
Well, anyway, his replacement was Nico McBrain.
Yeah, Nico, yes.
Very well.
Well, Nico, again, we'd seen him on the Trust tour, and we used to watch him when Trust was, I mean, I wasn't on that tour initially, when Trust supported us in England, but when Trust did a few shows with us was he in France? No, it was in Germany. We always used to creep up to the side of the stage and watch Nico, because he was just such a phenomenal drummer. I mean, he was one of those drummers who's like poetry in motion when you watch him. It's called Nico Poetic, but you know,
stretching it a bit, I think.
But you know, there's some drummers you can, even if you're not a drummer, you can watch them and think, cool, that guy's really good. You know, just the way he moves and the way he handles things and everything. So
he joined up, and for some strange reason, he decided to leave sunny Willesden for the Bahamas to record the next album at Compass Point.
Yes, we did. Yes.
Still using Martin Birch. This is the Peace of Mind album we're talking about now. The first single from that was Fly to Icarus, and you recorded the video for that out in the Bahamas. Yeah,
Compass Point. Well, we were stuck, so we had found a film crew who were based in Miami with this director called Jim Yukich, because they were really close and we were working to quite a strict budget. So we thought, well, we'd fly over these septics and see how good they are. And funnily enough, we've stuck with them ever since. I mean, Jim has actually produced everything we've ever done since, and directed everything we've ever done since.
He's become another member of the Maiden team, but...
Yeah, sort of. He's more on the technical side. He's a very good technical director, is what we use it for.
But Fly to Icarus was his first effort?
Yes, it's got all kinds of stuff in here. We've got Nico as it's a real Heath Robinson production. We've got Nico as the hooded character. I'll never forget, Nico, face painted blue, with a mouthful of strawberry jam.
Yeah, not pleasant.
With a mouthful of strawberry jam, because we didn't use this section for the video, as it turned out, but Nico went, he got that great idea. He said, I'll sit here and then I'll dribble strawberry jam out of my mouth. And as he was doing it, there was this enormous electrical storm going on, like they only have in the Caribbean, with like lightning everywhere. And we sat there for half an hour trying to capture Nico dribbling strawberry jam with a bolt of lightning in the background, and it didn't work. So eventually we just used him as a painted blue. And Martin Birch is also featured in this video as well.
Keep an eye out for both of them.
Keep an eye out for Martin Birch.
Had it been an ambition of yours to play a big venue like that, and that one in particular?
Well, I think for me, Madison Square Garden was always sort of like a bit pie in the sky. I mean, it was like, wow, you know. And I'd always imagined it to be bigger for some reason. When I walked it, for some reason, I'd confused it with like the Houston Astrodome, which was so big they have clouds and stuff inside the building. And that's kind of what I expected. And in fact, it's really no bigger really than most American arenas.
After that appearance, you were out on the road again. You were doing 300 shows in 13 countries, 5 of which ended up behind the Iron Curtain. You played Poland. How was Poland?
It was great, actually. We're going back there next year. Yeah, we start the tour there. So it was obviously all right because we went back there. Again, I ended up somewhere most peculiar in Poland. The first night I was there in Warsaw, sleeping on the floor with this journalist and half a dozen students at 7 o'clock in the morning with all these empty bottles of vodka in some suburb of Warsaw. I'm quite convinced we shouldn't have been. It was probably verboten or something. Yeah. And wandering around with this journalist from Kerrang, going, oh, God, what happened? You know,
Kerrang journalist.
Yeah. Poland was a bit like that. It was a bit like, oh, what happened? You know, because of course they have this strange thing. They didn't drink beer over there. You go into nightclubs and things. Yes. Well, they have lots of beer, but you go to nightclubs and you go, I'd like a beer, please. It's like, no, only vodka. In fact, no, they don't even have vodka in the nightclubs, because it's like they don't drink vodka or beer. We went to a nightclub, you could only drink Bacardi, whiskey, gin or something else, and the only thing you could mix it with was Coke. So that was it. It was just like brain damage for the whole tour. The audiences were fantastic. And the technical side of it was really well done too, actually. They were really well organised. They were so up for it, because they'd never seen a show that big over there before.
Yeah. By this point, the Power Slave album was out, again produced by Martin Birch at Compass Point Studios in Nassau. I think most Maiden fans would regard it as your strongest studio album, without question.
I think, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that Nico, by this stage, was really completely integrated in the whole band, having done the world tour and everything as well. And so nobody was holding anything back at all, and there was no problems about line-up changes, or certainly, I mean, nobody was in any danger whatsoever of, like, getting pissed off with the whole situation or leaving or whatever. And so everybody just mucked in straight away and just got stuck in. And I think it's the closest to live that we've ever got on a studio album. You know, it's the closest to, like, a live sound.
And the stage show, which was very elaborate too.
Well, the stage show sort of stemmed from the album, really.
An Egyptian theme based on the album's sleeve.
So, well, I wanted to sort of go a bit, you know, Egyptian, so to speak.
Well, there's one track on the album, which is the title track, Power Slave.
Yes,
based on those themes.
Yeah, but in fact, Revelations on the album before, on Peace of Mind, also had bits of sort of Egyptological references sort of slung in that track. I thought about making that one much more specific, but I thought, no, let's wait a little bit. So I ended up on this one coming up with Power Slave, and then suggesting to everybody else, well, we don't really have an idea for the album cover. What about Egypt? So I got my picture books out and had a look, and sort of looked for album cover ideas, and we came up with this brilliant idea, and showed it to Derek Riggs, who painted it, and it was naff. So he just went away and painted his own thing, and it was brilliant.
Certainly a great sleeve. Really very good.
Well, again, we sat down and tried to plan it out and tried to go, well, couldn't you have like a huge temple here with a sort of a hieroglyph up there? And Derek would go, yeah. And he'd go away and come up with something totally different that was absolutely brilliant.
Which just about brings us up to the present day and the release of the new double live album, Live After Death. Yeah. Again, with a very impressive Derek Riggs sleeve on it.
Yes, well, we wanted the logical progression after taking his brain out and then killing him.
Not Derek Riggs.
Yeah, mummifying him. Well, possibly Derek as well, actually. And mummifying him and stuff like that.
was to was resurrect him live, and of course Live After Death was a great title for the album too.